Hi everybody, and welcome to Take the Lead Day. This is our inaugural Take the Lead Day, November 14th, 2017, and we are so glad you're here. I'm Gloria Feldt. I'm co-founder and president of Take the Lead. Take the Lead has the rather large mission of leadership parity, gender parity, by 2025. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we deliberately are having Take the Lead Day as a global day of action because we think it's all about action. We've done enough talking, we've done enough, we get inspired, that's always important, but the real important thing to do is to actually make it happen, and we together are going to make leadership gender parity happen by 2025. Take the Lead prepares, develops, inspires, and propels women to take their fair share of leadership across every sector by 2025. And that means we do training, we do mentoring and coaching, we do role model events, and we do thought leadership because we think it's time to change the narrative from a focus on the problems to a focus on the solutions. And it's just talking about some of those solutions that we're going to do here today. And this is how we hope you'll be able to use the wonderful video and the comments that you'll hear from some amazing women. This is the chance for you to hear from people like Gloria Steinem, Reshma Gopaldas, and Sarah Jones. And they're here to talk about how we can all take the lead in our own lives, in our own work, in our families, from the boardroom to the living room. And you're going to learn a lot about things you personally can do. So you can use this video to start a conversation. You can use it to make some plans. We hope you'll make some plans. And by the time you're done, we want you to have 2 or 3 things that you know you're going to do as a consequence of Take the Lead Day. Thank you so much for being with us today. Take the Lead Day 2017, power to you. So first, let me introduce you to the amazing Reshma Gopaldas. Reshma is the Vice President for Video Production at SheKnows Media. And I've had the pleasure of working with Reshma over the years as well, where she was an amazing wrangler of celebrities and video, all things video and digital at Planned Parenthood Federation of America. And in the middle of this auspicious group is the one and only Gloria Steinem. How can you introduce Gloria Steinem other than to say there is hardly any aspect of the women's movement and feminism that Gloria has not been a part of making happen, and for which we owe enormous gratitude. Everything from founding Ms. Magazine to being a founder of multiple different organizations to writing books that have shaped our lives. And her latest book, which we have right here, My Life on the Road, is a little bit of the story of her whole life and a lot of really profound discussion of what's going on in this world today and what the work is left for us to do. She's a serial starter of important women's organizations. Right.
Who was that masked woman?
In the fabulous
exactly. And Sarah Jones. The New York Times has called you the master of the genre. But I think in honor of the things we're talking about today, about women and power and leadership, not only the mistress, but maybe the queen of the genre. How about that?
I'll take it. Although in your spirit and Gloria's spirit and Reshma, I want to say it's non-hierarchical. We're all powerful.
No, but I would go for goddess.
I'll go for goddess. I'll go for goddess. I'll take it.
Goddess will do. Goddess will do very, very well. And truly you are the goddess of amazing multiple personality, which maybe we're going to see a few of them today. I'm hoping that some of those people from your fabulous one-woman show, Tony winning Sarah Jones, maybe you'll share some of those.
I just might.
So I have a question that I love to ask women when we start to talk. And it is this: when did you know you had the power to? And you fill in the blank. And this is one of those things, there's no right answer. Anybody want to jump in first, or shall I start calling names?
I'll start.
Great.
I was working at a job, and over the course of a few years, they gave me 2 jobs, actually. And I was out with a friend, and she's like, "Are you being compensated for both of those jobs?" And I said, oh no, I just like, it's pretty lucky that I like took this over. And she's like, no, it's not. You earned that. So she told me, go in there the next day and tell them I expect to be compensated for both of these jobs. And so I like just kind of ran with that. And within 2 weeks, I had a salary that was double my salary. Wow. And I never would have had that courage if it weren't for that friend of mine saying like, go in and don't think you need to be so thankful that you shouldn't earn things. You're doing the work, so you should be compensated.
Mm-hmm. So the power of helping each other know our value.
Yeah.
That's really huge. Gloria, when did you know you had the power to?
The first thing I thought of when you said that is that when I was little, I was like 7 or 8 or something, and I had written a poem about Thanksgiving. And I realized I had the power of words. And the teacher said to me, you didn't write that, somebody else must have written that. And it just crushed me. So 2 things were true. I realized I had the power, and in retrospect, I realized how important it is that we confirm each other, because it really crushed me for a long time. And the second thing that comes to mind is that I was always super terrified of public speaking. And because of the women's movement, it pushed me into it because I couldn't publish what I wanted to publish.
And I have 9 leadership power tools that I teach and that are sort of the core of Take the Lead's program. And one of them is use what you've got. Then the subhead of that is what you need is always there if you have the wisdom to see it and the courage to use it.
Well, I had something to say that mattered to me so much, which was like the dawning of feminism, realizing, wait a minute, we're not crazy, the system is crazy, if you know what I mean? Right.
That's a real turning point.
Right.
So Sarah, when did you know you had the power to?
I love that we get to fill in that blank, and I think I will sort of borrow a little bit from Reshma and a little bit from Gloria in that it was my weakness. I came from a multicultural family where I don't look like my mom. My mom looks a lot more like one of the Glorias here. And so there was a lot of confusion. This was pre-Obama, and people would say, are you adopted? Or, there was this feeling of, who's this little brown kid with this hair, with this, white appearing lady? And I was sort of so confused that I felt like I didn't have a self. And I started borrowing other people's selves. It really helped me empathize with other people. I would sort of escape myself and imagine, what is it like for somebody who's nothing like me? And oddly, along the way, I ended up finding many of my characters, and that drove my work. So I had the power to empathize at a profound level with people quite different than me. And then I guess the other thing I discovered was there are women who took on roles of anybody they wanted, including male roles. And it was important to me to take up all the space I wanted, perform as anybody I wanted, any background, any gender. And I learned I could get paid for it, as Reshma was talking about, just as much as my male counterparts. And that wasn't happening in the beginning. I had to find out that they were making a lot of money, and I was just kind of showing up and being the funny lady. And really, I could draw just as big a crowd, make just as much money for somebody, so why not demand, it's the same thing, 70, how many cents? 76 cents on the dollar?
Up to almost 80
depending on your race, right? If you get real intersectional, let's just say it ain't cool.
Exactly.
So it's time to take the lead, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Indeed. Gloria, I can't resist this because this is like, to me, I never forget that you say you learned from your father. Your father said he would never have a regular job and he would never wear a hat.
Right.
So to what extent did that shape you and the path that you took to feminism?
He taught me to live with and love insecurity. He never wanted to know what was going to happen tomorrow because, as he always said, it might be wonderful. If he didn't know. And this is great. Right. And this is great training for a freelance writer, which I was even before the movement. I still didn't have a paycheck. I'm grateful to that because I see how difficult it is, and my hat's off to people who go to jobs from which they can be fired. And I think all of us need a few people in every movement who just can't be fired, if you know what I mean. I mean, a lot of bad things can happen to us, I just want to say, but we can't be fired.
Reshma, when you think about the, like what's going on in the world today, we've almost been handed on a silver platter the perfect opportunity to make some major change. As I see it, it's a major change in the power balances and in how we actually deal with power in our culture. And the fact that, that sexual harassment now, thanks to some very brave women recently, I think the whole world now sees just how pervasive it is. From a media and information perspective, what do you see as being the responsibility that you might have at SheKnows?
You really have to educate people in a much more, I kind of want to say like a pop culture way, to show them how it relates to their everyday lives. One of the things we noticed during the election was every single woman was being interrupted on every single news show. And so we made a cut called Girl Interrupted. Just like a pop culture mashup. It did extremely well. Real change comes from real discomfort. And you have to make people uncomfortable, and you have to be uncomfortable in order to exact change.
For you, Sarah, the question I have is, you've blended your activism and your professional worlds in such creative ways. How did you get there? How did you get to doing that?
A one-woman show I'm doing now, which I'll be doing in Los Angeles soon, is called Sell by Date. It's about women, it's about empowerment, it's about economics, it's everything that Take the Lead is about. And I knew that I couldn't hit people with a lot of statistics. And then I realized, the statistics don't matter, the numbers don't matter. Lived experience taps into people at a core level where, so I'll let Bella just say,
yeah, like I met Sarah Jones. Hi guys. Like first of all, my name is Bella. I'm a feminist. Totes. Like obvi. But like the thing is that like for like girls my age, like I want to be able to call myself a girl. If like I need to call myself a girl, like why does it have to be like women with a Y? Like what is that? And like I just feel that like feminism, it's my personal feminism. Like Beyonce is like my feminist like spirit animal, not said in like an inappropriate way where I'm like dehumanizing Beyonce in any way.
So like Bella is, I just portray her. I let her ideas come out. I don't say, this is what, young white women are experiencing on the continuum of, there's a way to, again, sort of personalize and hopefully find the humor. So I found that, if you want to talk to people about difficult issues and help them get uncomfortable, I couldn't agree more with that. But I think that's how we get there. We have to kind of be human. We have to stay human. And that includes finding, the pathos and the humor.
And it is making people laugh, I have to say. Because it turns out, you're not crazy, we're not crazy, because it turns out that laughter is the only free emotion. It's the only emotion that cannot be compelled by someone else. Fear can be compelled, even love, because if you're dependent long enough, but laughter happens when two things come together and make a third, or when you laugh when you learn something, when you understand something. So I would say one good rule is don't ever stay any place you can't laugh.
I totally, agree with all of that, and I'm watching all of the political comedy shows myself, of course, every day. But sometimes I worry that it's just really easy to think we've done something when we've watched and laughed at a political comedy show.
I'll just let my friend Lorraine. She's older than anybody on this couch. Or in this room.
Are you sure? I'm pretty old.
I'm positive, sweetheart. You're still a spring chicken to me. So my name is Lorraine Levine. I've been here longer than anybody, and I'll tell you this. If you let art come into your politics, it includes the laughter, the dancing, the poetry, any of the societies. I've lived long enough to see the totalitarianism, you name it. And when the artists start to get their work, even if it's underground, That's how you bring down the totalitarian regimes. If everybody pulls together and laughs, they're not just going to laugh, they're also going to take action.
One of the many Gloria Steinem famous statements is, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off."
My favorite.
And it's very hard for women, say in a corporate setting, to feel that they can actually have that kind of freedom of speech, as it were. What are your thoughts about how we continue to move on this path of greater equality and greater parity for women, even in institutions that are typically not so welcoming to speaking those truths?
It helps, I think, if we think outside the hierarchy. For instance, if you are a young executive or executive-to-be, there are probably women who are the cleaning women in the office. They know a lot, those women, and they have job problems too. And you can help them by supporting them in their job issues. So just getting out of the hierarchy and looking to see all the women who are around you and having lunch and talking about it and saying, how can I help you, and here's how you can help me. It makes a big difference. And it's important to do that too, because we don't want to join the system as it is. We want to transform it. We don't want to be in a slot in a hierarchy. It's boring. So.
Yeah, we're built to compete against each other, and the real value is in realizing that we're actually allies in this. And it's very hard to do in everyday application, because you're taught from the beginning, this is your job, you need to do better than everyone else. You want to switch it to, this is our team, and if one of us does well, we're all doing well.
Yeah. It's like we have to understand that there really isn't a finite pie.
Right.
Of anything, really. And certainly not a finite pie of intelligence or love or innovation. How do we learn that? How do we teach that to each other?
Don't be ashamed to try. To try to fail. Failure is the best way to succeed. Because then you learn what doesn't work, and then you learn, like, oh my gosh, I thought that was going to tank, and it did so well. And in terms of the finite pie, like in what we do, we produce content. So if one of us comes up with a good piece, it's just going to inspire and motivate the rest of us to be like, oh, I can do that. And everyone does well.
Other thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think anything is as creative as listening to each other's stories.
Yeah.
Sitting in a circle, I mean, that's what all movements come out of. It's what we're doing right now. It's what you're doing for us, and teaching people how to do. So we each have a unique story. It's not competitive. Each of us is unique, and we each have something to teach and something to learn. And just simple rules of that, or guidelines, there are no rules, but guidelines. I mean, just to remember, if you're in a group and you have more power than most folks, remember to listen as much as you talk. But if you have less power, remember to talk as much as you listen, which can be just as hard, because you're used to hiding. Yeah, right. And just daily kind of little guidelines like that can make a huge difference.
Can we just move this conversation then to the thoughts that you have about what the individual woman can do, should do, what women can do together to make this profound shift in the power paradigm, to make this profound shift in the whole ethos of what our culture has been about? I often like to ask people, what would our institutions be like if they had been designed by women? If I'm watching this, what would you want me to go do myself, and what would you want me to go do maybe with some other women and perhaps with some other men, with men? So you want to take that, Sarah?
Well, when you said men, I was going to say the story I told earlier about figuring out my worth and my value. A male counterpart who does one-person shows said to me, "This is what I make." And when I told him about my situation, he helped me realize that I needed to ask for what I'm worth, but also when we can get our male allies talking about this stuff, it kind of reminds me of talking about race, right? sometimes if you're talking about race, what you need is to get a whole bunch of white people together so they can talk to each other and like really understand how to change the systemic racism that, you know, they can impact. And I think it's not the only thing I would do. I would certainly get together with women and have frank discussions about what we all earn, have frank discussions about situations like Reshma talked about. Where are we under-earning? And how can we advocate for each other? What if there were a union of some kind that had all of us in it, along with the women who clean the buildings, along with Gwyneth Paltrow, and, you know, like if every woman were in a union and used our bargaining power collectively, the super powerful women would help offset, you know, we'd sort of get some parity. I know this is way out there. 2025, right? Take the lead.
We've got a few years.
We can get there, we can get there.
So, Reshma, what would your
Well, I also think the way we can have all this start changing is to say you have to find allies where you don't think you have them. You know, being a woman of color in content creation is very difficult. You're usually the only diverse person in the room. I will say to people, but what about diversity? What about this? What about let's try this? And it makes people really not comfortable. And it makes me extremely uncomfortable. But then when you find allies, like I work with a lot of people where we talk about this all the time, and there is nothing that can make you, you know, society teaches us that we're crazy just for having opinions. There's nothing more satisfying and more empowering when you have an ally that says, you're right about that. That's what I thought, or this. And so finding your allies and then working together to make that change.
I mean, what makes a movement is circles of people talking to each other, telling our stories and so on. I don't learn from sameness, thank you very much. I learn from difference. I don't learn while I'm talking. I learn while I'm listening. So if we just state it as a positive, I know we say we have to have difficult conversations, but I think we have to say something else too, which is I wouldn't even want to live my life if they're looking back, if I'd been stuck in the place, you know, where I once was. Right.
And optimistic people do live longer and healthier and
yeah, well,
in
but
many ways,
it's
better
just
for everybody.
it's just true. I mean, okay, gender is made up, it's artificial. Race is made up, right? We can unmake them up. All right. The truth is that we're each a unique individual here that could never happen before or again, right? And we all share like 95% because we're human. Right? So if we can just get out of those labels, we'll be so much freer and happier and more fulfilled and laughter and I don't know, you know, I just think we need to see the positive.
Sounds like the world we would all like to live in, and it's, I mean, the passion of my life has been to see women have that equal share of those good things in the world, and I don't think it's an irony, I think it's a wonderful truth that when that happens, it will be a healthier, better world for men as well. So what do Bella and Lorraine think about the state of women today?
Oh my goodness. Well, okay, so I'll let them quickly say.
So I feel that, like, first of all, as like a white woman, I'm just super aware of like my privilege, and I don't want to like rob women of color of like their time. Like I just want to like make sure that I'm woke in that way in this moment. But like I feel that like we all have to like find our common ground and like really be willing to be like, oh, my bad, like on a collective level, if that's what's necessary. And like I have like white friends who are totally not like, they don't get their privilege, and like that's my job to like go get them. So I feel that like even within the feminist movement and talking about women's issues, like we have to also talk, like Gloria always does, about like Native American issues or like people of color, immigrant rights. Like if you look at women in all categories, like the empowerment that like we all need is like baked into all of that.
Okay, so that's Bella's opinion. I agree with her. I agree that feminism is about empowerment for everyone, and that when we do align our values with our, with our speech. So it sounds small, but things like looking at how much women make, right? When we say women, who are we talking about? And it's important to say Native American women just got, Equal Pay Day. People don't understand that. I don't think Lorraine knows that statistic. How do we get that to her, but in an interesting way that's compelling for her and that will then spur her to action, or whomever, But I think seeing that, what is the wonderful expression that my liberation is bound up with yours? And I can't feel free in my, kind of ivory tower as long as any woman anywhere is suffering, and frankly, everyone else in her community suffers when she's suffering. So we really are talking about a larger humanitarian, feminism is humanitarianism.
So when you think about women who have inspired you along the way, who are those people? I mean, is there a woman or some women who have inspired you?
I can jump in because Gloria can't say this about herself, but I can. I mean, hello. This is the easiest. And I will say, I met Gloria very early in my career. She did exactly what Reshma said. She lifted me up immediately, was so supportive, came to my performances, made me feel like my worth, my work was really valuable. And through her strength, I then was able to meet other women and feel empowered. And Meryl Streep was one of my mentors early on, and she amplified my voice with hers. So I feel like the conversation about mentorship and, elevating other women, that every woman I admire, I'm sitting next to two Glorias I admire and a Reshma, who lift other women up. And I think that combination of, really understanding that our power is collective. It's candlelight, or some other great metaphor I could come up with. When you light one and you fill a room and you're able to light others, I mean, it just enlightens all of us. So my inspiration cup overfloweth. Yeah.
Gloria.
Well, there's so many, it's really hard. I guess Wilma Mankiller, I would say, because she, not only in and of herself, because she knew how to empower people, how to help them empower themselves, not to lead them, not to make a hierarchy and all that. And she was a genius at that. But also because through her, I got connected to the fact that much of what we want once was here. Mm-hmm. But she made me understand that it wasn't always this way, that 95% of human history was about the circle, not the pyramid, and that languages didn't have he and she, and they didn't have a word for race and all of it, or for nature, because we were not separate from it. So she set me free in a lot of ways, or set my hopes and imagination and knowledge free.
Okay, so I'm sitting next to Gloria Steinem, but it's not you.
I can handle it.
She's as cliched as this might sound, it is my grandmother. When I was growing up, she would always say to my brother and me, people can take everything from you, but they can't take your education. And to kids, I was like, So after she passed away, my cousin's wife revealed this amazing story that my grandfather and grandmother were in the partition of India and Pakistan. So they literally lost everything, and they had to move to India, and you couldn't bring things like jewelry and all your belongings, so they literally were going to nothing. So what she did was she knew she'd have to make money there. She learned how to dismantle a sewing machine and packed it in all different places so no one would know it was something of value. And then when she got to India, she put it back together. And that's how she made money for the first few months as a seamstress. She inspired me and taught me, you do need to be educated. No one can take that from you.
Thank you again for being with us on Take the Lead Day. We're so glad that you've shared the opportunity to come together with women globally for our Global Day of Action. Take the lead. We're here to get our country and the world to leadership parity in gender by 2025. So we've got a lot of work to do together, and that's why we want to make sure that when you leave, whether you've seen this in your home, whether you've joined with other people in a location anywhere in the world, or whether you've hosted your own event, we want you to now go forth and take some action. And here are 3 specific actions that you can take. First of all, download your personal power plan. If you haven't already, download that personal power plan at taketheleadwomen.com. And you will be able to use that as your guide to create your goals, to create your plan, to take what you've learned today, take the new thoughts that you've had, take the ideas and the suggestions and work them into a plan for yourself to take yourself further, faster, to take yourself where you want to go with your life and with your leadership and with your career. Secondly, we believe everyone can be a mentor and everyone needs to have a mentor. So we encourage you to go to, again, taketheleadwomen.com and click on Mentor. And there you can go to our Glassbreakers Take the Lead mentoring platform, and you can get a mentor or you can be a mentor. You'll find lots of great content. We've got lots of information for you, and you'll be matched with someone who will fit what you're looking for, whether you want to be a mentor or get a mentor, or both at the same time. And last but definitely not least, we want you to think about investing in yourself. We all need to continue learning, and as of today, registration is open for our brand new, incredible, powerful course, an online self-study course on the 9 leadership power tools to advance your career. You'll get a refreshed idea around what power is. You'll learn very immediately actionable skills, tools, and tips to make yourself thrive in the world as it is while you're learning how to change the world as it should be. So be sure to go check it out at taketheleadwomen.com. Look for the 9 Leadership Power Tools self-study online course. I can't wait to see you there, and I can't wait to see what you do with this course to accelerate your career and get where you want to go with your life and your leadership.